And take you back to our breaking news this morning coming out of New Zealand. We have Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern addressing now the media regarding that shooting in Christchurch. Let's listen in.
Whilst I cannot give any confirmation at this stage around fatalities and casualties, what I can say is that it is clear that this is one of New Zealand's darkest days. Clearly, what has happened here is an extraordinary and unprecedented act of violence. Many of those who will have been directly affected by this shooting may be migrants to New Zealand. They may even be refugees here. They have chosen to make New Zealand their home, and it is their home. They are us. The person who has perpetuated this violence against us is not.
Our story begins here with this episode of The Culture War from Tim Pool's show. A certain exchange between Sean and Emma led to these two videos. This one on the left by Nuance Bro, called Emma Vigeland Embarrasses Her Own Networks, and this one on the right by Actual Justice Warrior, called TYT's Darkest Secret. So we'll start with some clips from this video by Nuance Bro and debunk some of what he says about Emma. Then we'll debunk some of Sean's unfair criticisms of Emma from this video and probably bounce back between the two. Let's start with this clip.
How about the fact that you called the
grooming event
shooter in the neo-Nazi Texas shooter who watched your program, you called that a false flag?
Because you don't even know anything about that story.
I do.
It was four clips of the episode, and you can see in the images he wasn't even subscribed to the channel.
What Tim Pool just said about the Texas shooter not even being subscribed to his channel is not provable. Someone can easily post clips from a YouTube video without even being logged into their account. It's also very easy to hit the unsubscribe button before you start posting clips from someone else's video. People can erase their digital footprint in any number of ways. As we will see in part 2 of this video, this is exactly what the Christchurch shooter did.
Yeah, but he watched your show.
No, he didn't. He watched one guy.
Yeah, have you ever went to those time codes? He was highlighting specific, and I won't name the guest from the guest.
But
like,
he did watch your show.
Like this is
so you're saying he watched an episode?
Smear.
Sure, but do you understand
come
why?
on.
And he posted
That
about
one. Who was that one guy who watched the Majority
think,
Report and then commented on what Sam did?
Why do you think that? But no, this was a neo-Nazi. Why do you think your content appeals to neo-Nazis?
Are you kidding me right now?
No, I'm just wondering why you think that.
Have you
Okay,
ever,
I'm gonna do something I don't normally do, but that was an egregious over-the-line statement where I don't know if you are intentionally trying to just generate clips that are nonsensical or you're just really that stupid.
Oh man.
The idea that because a Nazi watched your show appeals to Nazis is like, look, if you want to have a real conversation, we have a real conversation.
The Emma Vigeland standard has been set. Her standard seems to be, if a neo-Nazi, a single one, watches your show, that means your show appeals to neo-Nazis and people should be questioning you and implying that your show is this type of content, like neo-Nazi, pro-neo-Nazi content. So, keeping the Emma Vigeland standard in mind, imagine if a neo-Nazi watched her boss's show, The Majority Report. I'll do you one better. Imagine if a neo-Nazi not only watched the show, but called into the show. I'll do you one better on top of that. Imagine if they not only watched the show and called into the show, but that the people, the hosts of the show, who are supposed to be progressive leftists, are actually loving this guy, laughing along with him, and saying they should fly him out and that he needs to call in more often. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have that clip. Let's take a look at it and we'll offer commentary throughout.
I will summarize the clip that Nuance Bro plays in just a second. But I want to clarify something first. Emma did not say that Tim Pool's show appeals to neo-Nazis simply because a neo-Nazi happened to watch it. Here's what she actually said.
I believe that your program appeals to a right-wing audience, and there's a reason that the neo-Nazi shooter watched your program.
Did you guys catch the difference? If not, I'll explain it here with this. Let A be the statement that Tim Pool's show appeals to neo-Nazis, and let B be the statement that a neo-Nazi watched Tim Pool's show. Nuance Bro is claiming that Emma said B, therefore A. However, from this clip, it's clear that what she's actually saying is A, therefore B. So Nuance Bro gets this one wrong. For a YouTuber with the word nuance in his name, he sure seems to lack it. Now, Nuance Bro gets into this phone conversation between Michael Brooks and a guy from American Vanguard. I'm not going to play that clip here, but basically, Michael is unaware that the caller is a neo-Nazi, so they joke around and have a good time. But here's the thing, the Majority Report continuously pumps out anti-neo-Nazi content. Now it's important to note that a neo-Nazi can still be a fan of the Majority Report in spite of this, but they cannot be a fan knowing that they are welcome in the fan base. The same cannot be said of Tim Pool's show, as we will see in part 3 of the video.
So how's that Emma Vigeland standard working now?
It seems to be working fine, since I clarified what it actually is, and not your mischaracterization of it. Okay, let's jump over to Sean's video and see what he's got to say.
This video has been a long time coming, years in the making. I know a lot of you have wanted me to explain what went down in Baton Rouge and the connection to TYT, and today is the day. Get your popcorn ready, get seated, because I'm gonna go over all of this. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm bringing this up now, the reason why we're talking about this, has to do with my appearance on Tim Pool's Culture War with Emma Vigeland, because Emma Vigeland decided that it was appropriate to label Tim Pool as the inspiration for the Hispanic neo-Nazi shooter down in Texas, based on just 4 screenshots that were displayed.
I didn't get the impression that she was saying Tim Pool inspired the Texas shooter. It seemed more like she was just saying he makes content attractive to neo-Nazis. However, I'm not entirely sure on this one, so I'm going to give Sean the benefit of the doubt. With that being said, Sean is incorrect when he says Emma's claim is based on just 4 screenshots. It's also based on Tim calling it a false flag and then laughing about it the next day when he was proven wrong.
I'm not going to let that pass. I'm not going to let that slide, and that's why it was brought up by me on that episode of Culture War, and I completely annihilated Emma Vigeland on that point.
No, you didn't. You just provided evidence for an entirely different claim.
I completely showed her for the hypocrite that she is, and I didn't expect it to go further than this. I didn't expect it to be addressed by TYT, but since they have addressed it, since they've continued to downplay it, since they've continued to lie about it, I've decided I have all the evidence, I have all the screenshots, I have all the videos, I have everything close to the 7-year anniversary, and I'm gonna drop it all in this video for you guys to see, so it's undeniable. You want to lie, you want to pretend that this was no big deal, you want to pretend that this wasn't direct inspiration, I'm going to rub your face against it. You want to say that Tim's screenshots or screenshots of one episode of Tim's show equals Tim Pool inspiring somebody right in front of my face, I'm gonna staple this to your forehead so the world can see it every time they look at you.
I want you guys to remember everything Sean just said here. Specifically, I want you to remember the part where he calls Emma a hypocrite, because we are going to come back to it at the end of part 2, and I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly why Sean is wrong here. So, what exactly is Sean referencing here? If you watched this episode of The Culture War, then you probably figured out he was referring to this exchange.
There was that one guy who posted Sam Cedar a whole bunch, remember? The guy who killed all those people at the bar in Ohio?
I don't remember that case specifically.
Why did that guy watch Sam Cedar so much?
Why did Gavin...
Why do you guys appeal to mass shooters? Why do mass shooters
There's a
talk
qualitative
about
difference.
Sam Cedar being so inspirational to them?
Why did Gavin
Why is Emma Vigeland inspiring mass shooters? This is what you do. I can invite you on for a real conversation, and what do? Your show's for neo-Nazis. This is why you guys don't get invited places, because you're not having real conversations.
I don't really care about getting invited places.
Yeah, right. So go live in your grifter echo chamber where you guys can play songs with bad audio and then say, whoopsie.
I'm sorry, that audio thing really upset you.
Wait, have you ever covered
What
the
upsets
Gavin...
me is when I talk about Ron DeSantis making fake things to trick people, and that's what you guys do. It's kind of like, how about that?
We do AI images?
Sean is now about to bring up a terrorist that was influenced by Jimmy Dore.
But used to be at TYT, and who was the Baton Rouge shooter, watched, reposted, and did reactions to Young Turks videos. A lot of them were straight misinformation. There was one in particular where they were going after a cop who slammed a woman, which, by the way, the cop acted inappropriately, but they wildly speculated that it was a black woman. It turned out to be a white woman. And there was a call in the video of like, what do you do if you see a pregnant black woman being assaulted by a cop? Said he's going to step up. You can watch these videos; they're available online. And he shot 4 cops.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't my comment.
I didn't say. No, hold on. I didn't say it was your commentary, but you're saying screenshots on this guy's phone. Big problem. I got to bring it up right here. But have you ever covered at all what inspired?
Because
he killed 4 police officers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That wasn't my coverage, so I don't know. I was based in
What
New
about
York.
the guy in Dallas? Remember him?
So if screenshots, which are of clips that weren't even him speaking, is Tim Pool inspiring the shooter, then how come you've like never done this commentary at a place you used to work at?
The implication by Sean that Emma now has any obligation to talk about the terrorist that was influenced by Jimmy Dore simply because she used to work for the Young Turks is utterly ridiculous. This can be seen with a very simple analogy. Imagine if someone who used to work for Fox News went on Tim Pool's show and wanted to bring up the neo-Nazi Texas shooter that Emma just brought up. Does this person have any obligation to talk about Tiller the baby killer? Unless this person had anything to do with platforming Bill O'Reilly, or is Bill O'Reilly himself? The answer is no.
Fucking thing sucks!
Since Emma Vigeland played absolutely no role in platforming Jimmy Dore, she has no responsibility whatsoever to cover the story that Sean just brought up, simply because she used to be an employee at TYT.
Of direct inspiration, like he saw a clip, cuts to himself saying, I'm going to step up because I'm the real one.
I've never heard of this, so.
Oh, that's
not?
interesting that you never heard of
Well,
that.
so
The Young Turks pump out about 10 videos a day and have thousands of videos on their channel. Also, as Emma pointed out earlier, she was based in New York, as opposed to the main office in Culver City, California. So the idea that she had never heard this story before actually makes perfect sense.
So it happened. Why do you think it is that your former program appealed to mass shooters so much?
I cover right-wingers.
I want to show you 2 things that Actual Justice Warrior and Nuance Bro conveniently left out in their videos critiquing Emma. First, this.
And I know that right-wing terrorism in this country dwarfs any kind of left-wing terrorism by like a 9-to-1 figure.
What does that do
I
with
might
I
be
just asked?
underestimating. Because I cover the real threat in this country, which is right-wing terrorism.
And next, this.
The Young Turks did cover this shooting. And even though, again, reacted specifically to Young Turks videos covering the cops very poorly, propaganda inspired him to commit this violence, in my opinion.
If you want to talk about the Young Turks,
hold on.
you should talk to them.
I just want to point out that Emma is actually correct in this exchange. If you believe someone's words inspired an act of terror, then you should confront the people you believe are directly responsible for the inspiration, and not someone who had nothing to do with the inspiration at all. This is the key difference between what Emma is doing and what Sean is doing. Let's jump back over to Nuance Bro's video real quick.
So isn't that incredible? She goes from, well, that wasn't my coverage. That's not my coverage, whatever. Okay, well, the Tim Pool stuff wasn't your coverage either, but you felt the need to criticize him over that. Why can't you criticize a place you used to work at? Granted, you didn't work there at the time, but again, not your coverage, whatever. No one's saying it's your coverage. But your former employer, where this guy was arguably inspired in part by the Young Turks, doing reaction videos to them, talking about how he's going to step up. Why no reaction to that?
Nuance Bro is now using a technique called whataboutery. She is allowed to talk about some topics that are not her coverage and not talk about other things that are not her coverage. Talking about one thing does not obligate her to talk about something else.
Clearly, people realize this is not a good faith attack by Emma Vigeland, no matter how calm she tries to do it and say, oh, I didn't mean to trigger you, Tim. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Everybody sees through it. It's bad faith.
Nuance Bro is wrong here too when he describes Emma Vigeland's attack as bad faith. Here's what she was trying to do.
I responded a little bit to some criticism about me even doing the debate on social media, and essentially just saying, like, this is what happens when you go on fascist platforms. They'll just smear you as a pedophile. Yeah. But the reason I did what I did is that I went in there with the intention of not getting invited back because I was going to be adversarial. I was going to challenge him on his platform, call out his lies, call out his debate tactics, and leave. And the reason he's calling me a pedophile is because I did that as a warning shot to any other leftist that might come on and challenge him in that way.
Yep. He has to make you regret it, and he's just dumb enough that it took him 3 days to realize he needs to lean heavily onto the sling mud portion.
Right, and just to Matt's point, I don't think the majority of his audience is going to be swayed by me coming on. But I do think that there's a possibility that there are a few people that start to question it. We have people that call into the Majority Report, might be someone watching right now, who felt that they were de-radicalized by seeing Sam and Michael's work in the past, maybe even mine, that cause them to question because we directly engage with these ideas and it gets into their algorithm.
Emma explains in this clip that she wanted to expose some of Tim Pool's lies and potentially de-radicalize some people from his audience. From this, it's clear that Emma actually had very good intentions with her appearance on Timcast. Now, I will wrap up part 1 by addressing one of Sean's unfair criticisms of Emma.
So again, I need to reiterate, the standard that was put forward against me, against Tim, on Timcast IRL, were screenshots on this guy's social media page. So I'm not saying that you can't talk about these issues, or you can't say these incendiary things, or anything like that. I'm going by Emma Vigeland's dumb standard that she didn't think through, and comparing and contrasting screenshots of time codes where Tim wasn't even talking, somehow making him responsible, to directly being inspired, directly repeating the false talking points from the Young Turks, and then acting based on that bad information.
Sean, presenting evidence for one claim is not equivalent to disproving another. Proving that Jimmy Dore inspired a terrorist?
Me?
Is not the same as proving that Tim Pool did not influence one. This guy, actual justice warrior, could really benefit from some basic courses in logic. Hey guys, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please don't forget to click that like and subscribe button. And if you'd like to help support my work, please consider making a donation. The link to my PayPal is down below. We may circle back to these 2 videos, but for now, it's on to part 2. How actual justice warrior and Nuance Bro fail to meet their own standards. I will kick off part 2 with this clip from one of actual justice warrior's live streams.
Lauren, what horrible positions did you have in the past that you want to denounce yourself for? Nothing specific that I have, but what would you like to denounce yourself for?
It literally blows my mind. They're like, you said negative things about immigration, and I'll be like, okay, just a single quote, please, for the love of God, a single quote that you disagree with so we can get into it. And it's like, no, didn't you shoot refugees?
And now we can finally circle back to the Christchurch shooting. Recall from the introduction, there was a gunman that terrorized 2 separate mosques in New Zealand. the Al-Noor Mosque, and the Linwood Mosque. He live-streamed this brutal attack on Facebook. He prepared for the attack by using a drone to investigate the grounds of the two mosques. He also looked at schedules online to see when mosques would be at their busiest in order to maximize his kill count. He came armed with 2 AR-15 style rifles, 2 12-gauge shotguns, 2 other rifles, and wore a bulletproof vest. A police car rammed his car off the road as he was on his way to a third mosque, and he was subsequently arrested. About a year later, he would plead guilty to 51 counts of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 instance of engaging in a terrorist act. New Zealand police advised mosques across the country to remain closed until they could determine there was no further threat. The Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern referred to the event as one of New Zealand's darkest days and said that New Zealand gun laws would change. We asked a question at the beginning of the video. What radicalized this terrorist? We will now delve into the things that answer this question, and it all begins with the French writer Renaud Camus. Camus began his writing career in the 1970s. In 1996, Camus had an epiphany he referred to as the Great Replacement. He described this theory in a 2016 interview published in a British magazine called The Spectator. So, what exactly is the Great Replacement? It is the idea that as non-white people immigrate into Europe, particularly people from the Muslim community, the native European populations are being ethnically replaced due to these immigrants having higher birth rates. Camus believes that this was a deliberate plan to erase the white population of Europe. Hence, this is sometimes referred to as the white genocide conspiracy theory. So, what's Lauren Southern got to do with this? Well, late at night on July 3rd, 2017, Lauren published a YouTube video called The Great Replacement.
The Great Replacement is a term coined by French writer Renaud Camus, referring to what he views as the irreversible overthrow of France and its culture by Muslim immigrants from the Middle East and North Africa. The Great Replacement is a very simple concept. You have one people, and in the space of a single generation, you have a different people.
When the Christchurch attack happened, many people tried to pin the blame on Lauren Southern. Why, you ask? Well, because before his attack, this terrorist wrote a 74-page manifesto called The Great Replacement, which bears the same name as Lauren's video. And upon hearing news of the attack, Lauren quickly removed it. She also took to Twitter and sent out the following tweet. I am utterly disgusted by those sending tweets along the lines of, "Are you happy?" to right-wingers. Would you send this to a Muslim that has never advocated violence on the day of an Islamic terror attack? Let's see how Lauren handled this criticism from Dusty Smith and many others.
Today we have a doozy of a video. If you follow me on the hell site known as Twitter, you have probably seen 1 or 2 of these comments in my replies. Don't you have more mass shootings to inspire Nazi Barbie? Or you killed 51 people, how does it feel to have caused a massacre? Besides this obviously being a not so clever trick to completely avoid any argument I've made, far more importantly, the base of this claim is completely false. Anyone who has taken 2 minutes to read the commission report would know this claim is impossible.
Really, Lauren? Tell us why.
I published my video in July 2017. The official report clearly shows the shooter had made up his mind to commit a terror attack in January of 2017, 6 months before I published my video. I'm not sure if this guy has a time machine, but the math isn't really adding up to me.
Okay. Why else?
You could read the entire commission report and my name is not found once. This is just pure media fabrication. Why? Because they can.
All right. Are there any other critiques you'd like to address, Lauren?
Lauren, maybe the report didn't say anything about you, but it's still pretty damn clear
you were the one who inspired this shooter because he named his manifesto after a video you made. But there are two key problems here. One, I did not create the Great Replacement theory, and it was around long before I made my YouTube video.
So what? That still doesn't make it okay that you spread this horrible racist conspiracy theory. It also has nothing to do with whether the shooter got the idea from you or someone else.
I decided to make this video after learning about the idea that Europeans were going to become a minority in Europe from The Guardian. I decided to try to find any intellectuals who had criticisms of this and what problems this may cause. I found Camus. It said he was a left-wing philosopher, and I thought he would be good to quote. There I go, my intellectual quote for the video.
I'm not sure what source you found that said Camus was a left-wing philosopher, but I could not find a single article to support this. His Wikipedia page even says he supported Marine Le Pen in the 2012 French presidential election.
What I didn't learn about Camus, of course, in a very brief Google search, was that he had further theories about this all being a deliberate and calculated plan.
Lauren is now confessing to bad journalism with her very brief Google search of Camus. And that, my friends, is why you should never trust anything Lauren Southern says. That, and also because she's a huge fucking liar, whose lying liar face never stops lying. So, Lauren gave two key arguments that supposedly prove her innocence in inspiring this terrorist. 1, the report does not mention her name, and 2, her Great Replacement video was not released until after the terrorist had already made up his mind. I'm going to debunk both of these arguments, starting with the argument that she isn't mentioned in the report. If we go to his manifesto, he clearly states that he developed his beliefs from the internet, and if we go to the report, it says that YouTube was for him a far more significant source of information and inspiration than 4chan and 8chan. He also took a number of steps to minimize his digital footprint, such as removing the hard drive from his computer, deleting emails, unfriending people on Facebook, shutting down Facebook accounts and creating new ones, removing links he had posted in forums, and using virtual private networks. Lauren's content could have easily been in any of that deleted activity. As for Lauren's other argument, the report does say that by January 2017, the individual had a terrorist attack in mind. However, if we go to his manifesto, he writes that he was influenced by 3 key events from the beginning of April 2017 until the end of May 2017. These events were the Stockholm truck attack committed by an Islamic extremist, the 2017 French presidential election in which Emmanuel Macron defeated Marine Le Pen, and 3, his visit to France, where he found that every French town he visited was occupied by people he referred to as invaders. It's also worth noting that her Great Replacement video was far from the first time she talked about the Great Replacement. We'll take a look at some examples of this in just a moment, but now I want to get back to Lauren's video addressing my biggest criticism. So, not only is Lauren incorrect when she says it's impossible she had any influence on this terrorist, but I'm going to show you that statistically, it is extremely unlikely that the terrorist was not influenced by Lauren at all. I can also assure you that at no point in this video does Lauren actually admit it was wrong of her to spread this horrible conspiracy theory. But anyway, there you have it. Addressing My Biggest Criticism by Lauren Southern. One of the worst owning ups of mistakes I have ever seen. In fact, if any of your friends ever ask you for a guide on how not to own up to your mistakes, you should just point them directly to this video. Now, this video was not the only instance of Lauren talking about the Great Replacement. Let's look at some other ways she spread Camus' fear-mongering about Muslim immigration into Europe, starting with this. This video is called The Streets of Paris. If you are not familiar with the type of content Lauren produces, then it's probably not obvious what she's trying to do here. But basically, what she is trying to show is that the identity of France is changing due to there being so many people of color in the video. She even wrote the following comment in the description of her video. For those who are confused by the point of this video, the point is that France is changing forever due to mass immigration. The people in this video were not speaking French. The women were not wearing their hair in French braids. I'm not going to read the rest of the quote, but she concludes it by saying, France will not be France for long. This full comment that you're seeing now is no longer in the description of her YouTube video. It was obtained from the website Wayback Machine, and it's not hard to see why she got rid of it. And if you scroll down, you can find lovely comments like this and this. Nice audience you're attracting there, Lauren. But this video was published after the January date mentioned in the Commission report, and even after the May date mentioned in the manifesto. Let's see if we can find something that was published earlier than this. The next thing I want to look at is the book she published called Barbarians: How Baby Boomers, Immigrants, and Islam Screwed My Generation. And it was first published on December 21st, 2016, which is before the January date mentioned in the Commission report. It's not before it by much, but it is a good bit before the April through May dates mentioned in the manifesto. Let's see how Lauren spreads Islamophobia in this book. Here she is quoting Donald Trump Jr. about Muslim immigration. If only a few Skittles in a bowl were poisonous, would you still take a handful? And yes, the metaphor was on point, but with all due respect to Trump the Younger, I think it was also a bit too flattering. In the next chapter, Lauren goes on to describe 3 types of Muslims: the cultural Muslims, the true believing fanatics, and the scholars. This is what she has to say regarding the frequency of each type. The purely cultural Muslim is as much a minority globally as the scholar. That title belongs to the zealous Muslims, and boy, are there a lot of them. And now, for my favorite quote from the book. Here she is criticizing the king of Nazis himself, Adolf Hitler, for not being Islamophobic enough. Oh, and another problem I have with Hitler? He fawned over Muslims more sycophantically than Justin Trudeau. Bibi Netanyahu was right to point out that Hitler decided on the Holocaust, partly because Middle Eastern Muslims told him they didn't want Jews expelled into the region. While we're at it, let's see if Lauren could have potentially influenced this mass shooter. From Lauren's book, Diversity is not a strength, it's a weakness. From the manifesto, Diversity is weakness, unity is strength. From Lauren's book, here's a sentence about multiculturalism in Western culture. Instead of a melting pot, it's a bunch of ingredients, left to rot separately. From the manifesto, a rainbow is only beautiful due to its variety of colors. Mix the colors together and you destroy them all, and they are gone forever. And the end result is far from anything beautiful. From Lauren's book, most millennials reject the nuclear family that our culture was built on because they resemble some sort of unenlightened old world of responsibility. From the manifesto, there are myriad reasons behind the destruction of the family unit. And the final quotes we'll look at from Lauren's book. Is modern culture really so great if it means we substitute Meghan Trainor for Mozart, Emma Sulkowicz for Da Vinci, or bell hooks for Plato? From the manifesto. Art and beauty subverted beyond all recognition, suicidal, nihilistic, and degenerate pop icons produced from a dead culture. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Kurt Cobain, and Freddie Mercury, just to name a few. And these are just some of the many similarities between Lauren's book and this shooter's manifesto. Now, I read both of these very thoroughly, so I can assure you these are actual quotes, but I must give credit to Vadim Newquist for some of these. It was because of his video, The Truth About Lauren Southern in Christchurch, that I was able to find some of these quotes more easily. Unfortunately, his video was removed from YouTube for supposedly violating the terms of service. Luckily, these other 2 videos on the topic are still available on YouTube. The Great Replacement Isn't Real by Sean Jen, and Why Blame Lauren Southern for Terrorism by What's Therapy. What's Therapy 2 gets credit for helping me find some of these quotes. Since the publishing date of this book is so close to the January date mentioned in the crime report, let's see if we can find something more distant in the past. Luckily, with some assistance from this video, I was able to find something. So, without further ado, I present to you an interview she did with her former employer Rebel News called
We Want to Stop What We Call the Great Replacement. Neat title, huh? And it kind of tears to shreds Lauren's claim that it was literally impossible for her to have influenced the Christchurch shooter's obsession with the Great Replacement, now doesn't it? You may recall that she made that claim inside this festering turd pile of lies she calls a video, but inconveniently for her, this interview exists. Great Replacement is in the freaking title. I assume you already noticed that. And most importantly, it was published well before the January date mentioned in the New Zealand crime report that Southern will have us believe exonerates her. But it doesn't, because once again, she is... Oh, and hey guys, by the way, it's Vadim here. I hope you don't mind me jumping in for a rocket just for a sec. Now listen, unfortunately, this video was immediately removed by Rebel Media in the wake of the Christchurch attack. So other than the fact that they obviously discussed the Great Replacement, we can't really speak to its content. But fortunately, we don't really need to, because Lauren produced a lot of content on Rebel News around that time, in which she fearmongered about Europe's culture dying due to immigration. And I'm not being hyperbolic there. She'd used that verbiage exactly. And the answer to questions like this, in case you were wondering, was always yes. Now, videos like these are only just a few examples, but for the purpose of today's video, we're going to focus on this video right here.
Is Europe doomed?
Spoiler alert, the answer to that question is also a resounding yes. But listen, there's 2 extremely damning things about this video that we absolutely need to address at the top here. The first being that Lauren's dress does appear to have been fashioned from repurposed furniture upholstery she likely found inside of a psychiatrist's office. And also, arguably quite a bit more importantly, once again, contrary to Southern's claim that she never spoke of the Great Replacement prior to her 2017 video on the topic, she totally freaking talks about it inside this video as well.
Oh my God!
That's right, so that's now 2, count 'em, 2 videos that potentially could have influenced the Christchurch shooter that Southern just lies her ass off pretending that they don't even exist, if you're counting. But now that we've got that out of the way, why don't we take a close listen to this flaming hunk of hateful doggy doo-doo Lauren calls a video and just see if we can find any similarities to what she discusses and what can be found inside the shooter's manifesto.
Many far-right groups and figures have been saying that the death of Europe and the West in general is inevitable. How much merit is there to this claim, though? The facts show that it is not that crazy of an idea. So here are the top reasons why Europe is screwed.
Okay, here we go.
Immigration and Islam. Around 1 million migrants arrived in Europe in 2015, and currently Europe is on track to accept another 3 million according to the EU. The situation is admittedly a disaster. Even Chancellor Angela Merkel has admitted they did not handle the crisis properly or protect the borders in the Schengen zone. The migrant crisis has been a disaster. It has led to a massive influx in crimes, welfare abuse, and terrorism. And speaking of terrorism, let's talk about Islam. Islam, in the way that it is most commonly practiced, is a fascist religion that cannot coexist with the West. And that has become quite apparent in Europe as you see Islamists segregating themselves into their own enclaves all over the continent. They don't want to be a part of European culture. The most popular name in London for young boys right now is Mohammed. Things are going to look very different 20 years from now. From 1990 to 2010, the Muslim population in the Netherlands nearly tripled. In France, it went up by over sixfold, and in the UK and Germany, it doubled. And that's just in 2010. Imagine what it'll look like in 2030. That brings me to another reason Europe is screwed, and that would be birth rates. In 2005 to 2010, the birth rates for Muslims and non-Muslims in Europe had a 0.7 difference, so Muslims had nearly double the birth rates of non-Muslims. In fact, there isn't a single country in all of Europe where non-Muslims have a higher birth rate than Muslims. With increased immigration of Muslims and the potential 3 million more migrants entering Europe, it's only a matter of time before Islam becomes the prominent religion in Europe. What is happening right now has been described by French writer Renaud Camus as the Great Replacement. It's essentially the replacement of native populations with immigrants that have no connection to the history or culture of the country and have no intentions of assimilating to or preserving it, therefore shifting the entire identity of European nations, and as a result, killing them. This multicultural experiment has failed. Unfortunately, many of the people living in Western Europe hate themselves. In Europe, especially Germany, I saw signs on every post calling for the death of the German people, the destruction of the German nation, and calls for the death of German identity. All of these things being posted by Germans themselves. They want their nation's culture and identity to die. And surprise, surprise, it's working. Western Europe has totally lost their sense of national purpose and identity, and it's killing them. It will end in disaster. Europe is on its deathbed. Just because you went to Paris once and enjoyed a baguette while looking at the Eiffel Tower doesn't mean everything is fine and dandy in Europe.
Okay, well, I guess we didn't find any similarities there. Sorry. No, seriously though, in my opinion, Lord Southern could have been his freaking ghostwriter. I mean, if you read the whole thing, the similarities are even more stunning than what you just heard. Lastly, before I go, Rocket would like me to point out that the shooter uses variations of invader a whopping 66 times in reference to Muslim immigrants living in Europe in his manifesto, and mentions the birth or fertility rates between Muslims and non-Muslims living in Europe 44 times. Now, I didn't count how many times Lauren invokes those terms, but it's a lot. Anyhow, thanks for having me, folks. You're all free to come to my country anytime and breed as much as your heart desires. Later!
Thanks, Hey It's Vadim. Now, just in case you're still not convinced that Lauren had any influence on this shooter, let's go back to the commission report and see who this terrorist donated to. Let's begin with these donations, which went to this organization, Generation Identity, a movement that originated in France, based on the ideas of the French author Renaud Camus, and then later spread to other parts of Europe. Their goal? Remigration. They want to drive the immigrants living in Europe out of their continent and put them back in their countries of origin. How do they accomplish this? By pulling various publicity stunts to make them feel as unwelcome as possible. What kind of stunts, you ask? Well, hanging up banners in towns all over Europe that call for the expulsion of Muslims for one. These are actually some of the milder stunts performed by the organization. Other more extreme stunts include members of GI occupying a mosque in Poitiers, France, the disruption of a play about refugees, and, in one of their most extreme stunts, they blocked a mountain pass in the Alps between the France-Italy border to prevent illegal migrants from crossing it.
One border, one nation, stop immigration!
Nous appelons également la jeunesse de France et d'Europe à se révolter contre l'immigration massive et la destruction de notre identité. Cela commence avant tout par la protection de nos frontières.
Next, we'll look at this donation, which went to Rebel News, an organization based in Canada, similar to the Young Turks, but with a far-right extremist slant, founded by the one and only Ezra Levant.
Anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-refugee, anti-climate, anti-liberal, anti a lot of things.
In these houses are enemy combatants who want to kill you, maim you, and destroy you. They want to destroy our way of life.
Next up is this donation to this individual, Stefan Molyneux, founder of Free Domain Radio and self-described philosopher. Stefan is probably best known among the YouTube community for having said this.
You know, I've spoken against white nationalism, but I'm an empiricist.
And the final donation we'll look at, and a very generous one at that, went to this guy. Meet Martin Sellner, leader of the Austrian chapter of Generation Identity and one of the biggest mouthpieces of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory.
We are on the brink of being replaced by immigrants who neither assimilated nor integrated into our society, and we are afraid that this process of Islamization will utterly destroy our identity and our democracy.
And here he is on video, admitting to exchanging emails with the terrorist.
Then in March 2019, an investigation for forming a terrorist organization against me started because I got a donation by him beginning of 2018 and exchanged a few emails with him.
Really, Martin? Let's take a look at those emails and see what they said. From the individual to Martin Sellner. It's a small amount to give in relation to the large amount of work you do. I only wish I could give more. I'm sure you already know, but I just wanted to tell you personally, you have support from people all over the globe, and there are millions that are relying on you and trust you to fight for their values. Keep up the great work. It will be a long road to victory, but with every day, our people are growing stronger. Have a great new year. God bless you, and God bless Europe. Now, the second email. Here he is offering to buy the terrorist a beer. From Martin Sellner to the individual. Thank you. That really gives me energy and motivation. Just got my second channel and my 5th bank strike down in 2018. If you ever come to Vienna, we need to go for a cafe or a beer. Wink emoji. And the third and final email from the individual to Martin Sellner. The same extends to you if you ever visit Australia or New Zealand. We have people in both countries that would happily have you stay in their homes if you ever visit. If you are coming to this part of the world at any time in the near future, you should contact Blair Cottrell or Thomas Sewell. Both are currently the leaders of a movement similar to yours that are establishing clubs and activism throughout most Australian capital cities. Keep fighting the good fight. Since I know this will be misunderstood,
You don't want to listen? Bye.
I am not saying that Martin told him to go out and commit a terror attack or anything like that, but what I am saying is that Martin certainly had influence on him. Now, with all these donations we've reviewed in mind, here are some very important statistics to consider. Lauren appeared in at least 119 videos produced by Rebel News before the terrorist had an attack in mind, and at least a total of 145 videos that I was able to track down before the shooter made his donation to the company. She was also a very frequent guest on Stefan Molyneux's show, where they had all manner of delightful conversation.
Coon!
She interviewed him on Rebel News herself as well, and they even teamed up for a widely publicized tour of Australia and New Zealand together.
Well, what I say to you, Lauren Southern, is that New Zealand is a diverse country. You say diversity is a weakness. This country is known as a melting pot. Are you saying we're a weak country?
Will you accept the diverse view that women should be stoned for the crime of being raped?
What?
She did multiple videos either advertising for Generation Identity and their missions or appearing with some of their leaders. These videos racked up at least 2,673,000 views by the time the terror attack occurred, and that is almost certainly an underestimate. And let's not forget all the videos she did on her personal account, demonizing Muslims and immigrants.
If this is what people consider being civilized, well then maybe they'd be better off joining a Papua New Guinean tribe, who I'm sure would be happy to roll around in garbage with them after burning some witches, eating some people, and engaging in some pedophilia.
Her Great Replacement video alone had about 620,000 views by the date of the shooting. Keep in mind, these statistics exclude a certain deleted interview she did with Martin Sellner about stopping the Great Replacement 6 months before the shooter had made up his mind on committing a terror attack. Oh, and the terrorist also spoke passionately about supporting those who help your cause financially. So, given all of that, and the fact that 1, YouTube was his main source of inspiration, 2, that Lauren is an incredibly popular YouTuber, and 3, all the similarities we see between the manifesto and Lauren's content, what do you think are the chances this terrorist never consumed any of Lauren's stuff? In the extremely, extremely unlikely event that the Christchurch shooter never consumed any of Lauren's content, it would still not matter. If you spread horrible ideas, and someone uses those ideas to spread harm, you have a duty to denounce those ideas, whether the person got the ideas from you or not. Now, I asked you guys to remember this quote from Sean.
Emma Vigeland decided that it was appropriate to label Tim Pool as the inspiration for the Hispanic neo-Nazi shooter down in Texas based on just 4 screenshots that were displayed. I'm not going to let that pass. I'm not going to let that slide, and that's why it was brought up by me on that episode of Culture War, and I completely annihilated Emma Vigeland on that point. I completely showed her for the hypocrite that she is, and I didn't expect it to go further than this. You want to lie? You want to pretend that this wasn't direct inspiration? I'm going to rub your face against it. You want to say that Tim's screenshots or screenshots of one episode of Tim's show equals Tim Pool inspiring somebody right in front of my face? I'm going to staple this to your forehead so the world can see it every time they look at you.
Well, get ready for this, Sean, because we're about to find out who the hypocrites here really are.
Fight!
And by the way, these are the kind of people like to quote Marx as if they're smart because they went to good colleges that got paid for by their corporate lawyer parents. But if they ever got within 5 feet of a worker, they'd get punched in the fucking face.
And today you'll notice up in the other corner, this corner, we have our guest, Sean, or Actual Justice Warrior. Everyone, welcomes in the chat, please.
So that now we have more progressives who will do exactly as Nancy Pelosi tells them. Do you think AOC has the balls to call out Nancy Pelosi?
She literally just did. She literally just did. No. It's so much easier to just be an outsider and critique the people who are doing the hardest thing imaginable, standing up to both Republican and Democratic establishments. But no, you get to feel morally superior because your Patreon subscribers are paying you to just crap on Democrats.
And now that we've established which people in this video are the ones that are actually inconsistent with their own principles, I will conclude part 2 with this clip from Nuance Bros video.
So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think Emma Vigeland was right with her criticism, saying, hey, why does your content appeal to these types of people? Do you think she's going to still apply this standard now knowing about the incident? She said she's never heard of it. Now she has. Are we going to see a new reaction from her? Probably not.
As I've already proven in part 1, Emma has zero obligation to cover the incident you just referenced because she played absolutely no role in platforming Jimmy Dore. Will we see you and Sean Fitzgerald cover Lauren Southern's role in spreading the white genocide conspiracy theory which led to the massacre in Christchurch, New Zealand? I'm going to take a wild guess and say probably not.